Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Nobody's Listening here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel, the place on the YouTubes to find all your Star Wars content. The Star Wars content that matters, I should say. My name is Matthew. Joining me once again to revel in the greatness of Dave Filoni is Rachel.
You know that's right. And I'm feeling very revelous today because I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking. And I have to say, for those of you out there, this is like a hater-free zone. Like, if you're tired of hating, like, even for us, with our friends, this is where we go to escape the hate.
Yes. And speaking of hate, I did think it was funny. We got our first hate comments on Outpost Unknown.
Oh,
and yes,
we have arrived.
Yes, it was our last episode, and I'd have to bring up the specific comment. It's been like a month or something, but I decided to test the waters because I went on a little rant about certain Star Wars YouTubers and how stupid I think some of that stuff was. We touched on it just briefly and got hate, and I made the joke. I put woke in the thumbnail just to see. We got like hundreds of views, and I was like, all it took was the word woke, and suddenly
tasty outrage clicks.
Yeah, the things there. So, yes, we sort of pride ourselves on not being, spiteful and angry here. So, if you're a Star Wars fan out there and you just happen to stumble across this, we're going to talk about what we like. Prequels, and we like all the Star Wars stuff. Safe zone. Star Wars, safe place here. You're safe from the Empire here.
Exactly.
The one piece of news that I did see before we dive into the first 4 episodes of The Bad Batch, season 3, the final season. It's so sad because I'm like, why is this over so soon? I just want this to keep going based on the arc of quality that keeps climbing with the show. Did you happen to see that the remastered Star Wars Dark Forces game is out today? And did you ever play that when you were younger at all?
I did not. So this would be a first time for me if I played it. But no, that's exciting. I mean, there's a lot of, in the gaming world, there's a lot of exciting stuff coming from Star Wars this year. So
Yep.
It can just completely take over our lives at this point.
Dark Forces is a game that I played in the 90s on that aforementioned Pentium 75 that I destroyed just by being in its presence. Maybe I have like Force Lightning or Force Static or something. Maybe I got a little Palpatine in me. Little Palpatine.
I mean, that would explain some opinions.
Right. But I remember Dark Forces because it was a first-person shooter in the vein of like Doom and Duke Nukem 3D and stuff. But it was running around shooting stormtroopers and stuff like that. But I watched some clips of the remastered version of it. It looks super awesome. So if you get a chance, I don't know if they're selling it or if it's just like a mod team that sort of created, but they upscaled all the graphics, so it looks cool. It still looks retro, but they look a lot better than what they did in like 1993 or whenever it came out. And it was a fantastic game. LucasArts made all kinds of awesome games back then, like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and stuff like that. And then Bob Iger killed LucasArts, and now we outsource all this stuff to everything. But anybody out there who likes Dark Forces, there is a new version of it up, like a modern, I don't know, reboot, revamp, whatever you want to call it. So go check that out. I highly recommend it because that game's amazing.
Very cool.
Speaking of amazing, let's talk about season 3 of The Bad Batch. We can kind of start with episode 1. Now, before we dive into it, I'll ask you, Rachel, sort of, we left season 2 on pretty much a major downer. Tech is dead. Tech's dead.
Yeah.
He's definitely dead after these 4 episodes. I'm pretty 100% sure he's dead. He's dead.
Yeah.
We'll mention it, but there's a shot in episode 2 where I looked and I was like, the ramifications of what the shot entailed got me thinking, and I won't say it till it's like a blink and miss. If you're not paying attention, you're gonna miss what this shot is. So remind me with my ADHD brain to bring this up during episode 2 to see if you noticed it. But there's little moments throughout this that I was watching. I was like, the ramifications of that being there means that this happened, and means lots of stuff happened. But I'll get there.
This is very mysterious. I'm dying to know what all of these like.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you shortly.
Tinfoil hat moments are happening.
Tech died, very dramatic. Order 99 or
Mhm.
whatever. He died, saving the rest of the crew. We lost Omega. Hemlock took her. Crosshair is in a real bad spot. Crosshair was taken down, and essentially Echo left with Rex. He's like, look, man, I'm out. All these other clones need help, and that's my role. I got to go do that. So we were left with Wrecker
Yeah.
and Hunter. That was it.
Yeah.
That was all that was left, and
Yeah.
they've lost everything.
Not
Um,
much match.
yeah. So what were your expectations going into this season? How did you feel like, did you have an idea of like, okay, this is going to be Hunter and Wrecker running around the galaxy searching for Omega? Did you feel like we were going to get right into what we did get into? How did you feel going into this season?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking back about previous seasons, and I do think that the tone of the first episode has been like very adventure and excitement forward. Like, if you remember last season, it started off with like the crab chase on the beach,
Yeah.
things like that. And so I thought maybe it would start with that and then kind of go in, then we'd maybe catch up with Omega. So I was actually kind of impressed and excited to go right into the thing that I actually cared about, which is catching up
Yeah.
with these characters that were in such dire straits last time we saw them. So it right away it kind of subverted my expectations, and in Filoni I should have trusted. What was I thinking?
Yeah, and I think we were all always kind of worried about, are we going to get back into treasure, some sort of weird thing, because this is the
Mm-mm.
final season, and I went into this thinking I don't want like throwaway episodes. Like
Right.
we'll talk about episode 2. I liked episode 2 a lot, and it could have been one of those throwaway episodes, but it
Mhm.
actually progressed
Mhm.
kind of like the story, like what these characters were trying to do, which establishes a background to it. But I was very worried that we were going to get a bunch of like, there's only 16 episodes left, and I don't want 5 or 6 of them to be these, adventure flicks. I just want to get,
Yeah.
hit me with the sadness. I can take it, sort of thing. Just get me
Yeah.
into it. So that's what I was
That
looking
being said, I
for.
was also worried it was gonna rush right past like, it was gonna, like, undercut the stakes of what happened last time by rushing through that story, and
Yeah,
I even though we only have, 15 episodes left of the show period, I appreciated that they took their time, and it really drove home, what happened last season. It
yeah.
continued those stakes.
Well, let's talk about it. Episode 1, confined. What are we doing in this episode?
Yeah, so we pick back up on Mount Tantus where Omega is not a prisoner, but very clearly a prisoner. She is in the Imperial Cloning Division against her will. But they have her helping out Emery around the lab. So she kind of has more freedom than you would necessarily expect for her as a prisoner.
Yeah.
And part of
We
her
found
job
out it's
is
her
to
clone sister in the last or the last
yes.
episode.
Yes, which is, I mean, one of the things that I'm kind of most interested in is this dynamic between her and Emery. And Emery is a really interesting character, I think. Like she's so fully Stockholmed, but you can't be around Omega and not have something shift. So I'm curious to see what you think about where we're going. I have theories about where we're going with her, but I want
Okay.
to see what you think too. So she's helping her out, but we see that when she gets her blood taken and it goes to Nala Se to go into like the centrifuge of
Yeah.
metachlorians or whatever is happening there, Nala Se like deletes the data and tosses it away. Um, the other thing is there's somebody else familiar here. Crosshair is still being experimented on, and we see them kind of
Oh,
crossing paths and eventually
he looks so
sitting down and
sad.
talking. He
He's
looks
so sad.
bad. He looks bad.
Yeah.
The
So I
scarring on his head, the everything of his body language, everything.
yeah, and I think maybe on one of the past episodes we ranked kind of our characters and whatnot, and I was like, I really like the character of Omega. Like, yeah, she can be
Yeah.
treasure. That's annoying, but I like that character. One thing I will say about Dave Filoni is people seem to jump on these young characters that he writes
Mhm.
immediately. Annoying, stupid brat. Like, I'm like, stick with Dave Filoni because he grows
There's an
these
arc.
characters. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
he starts them at a certain place and then they grow. That's what we want characters to do, grow and change. And just already in this first episode, I love
Yeah.
how she's already changed. She's they do the it felt Andor-esque, honestly, the way that it was just paced and the feel and the atmosphere of it. And she's like
Yeah.
scratching the thing in the wall, and like, how many days
Yeah.
have I been here? It's very kind of sterile. She's doing the same routine over and over and over again. But my boy Crosshair. He's my absolute favorite, and that first moment when she's like walking, she sees him and she tries to smile, and he doesn't even make eye contact. He's just like,
No.
my life is over. It's so
Yeah.
sad. It was I was literally sad for my boy Crosshair. I was like, no,
Right.
no. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he's the orchestrator of his own downfall in this situation. His decision to because he even said like the implant didn't lead him to do the things he did. Like those were decisions
yeah,
that he made based out of morality and character, and to see himself rewarded with this, I mean, that would be, I mean, talk about ego death. Like that would be incredibly crushing. But like you said, we like an arc. We love an arc. And I
yes,
feel like in order for him to be able to believably do the things he's done to this moment, to wherever he's headed in this final season, I think you needed to
death.
see a truly crushing blow,
He's gonna
and
die.
he got it.
Yeah,
I know
he's
he's
gonna die.
totally gonna die.
He's gonna die. We're seeing the tremors are
Shaky
getting
hand.
worse. The
Yeah,
tremors are getting worse. I'm
they're
just like,
not
no.
good.
I'm like, no, no,
They're
no.
not good. And I do love kind of this past, like, first of all, I love that they're not afraid to make this an incredibly melancholy episode. There
Yeah.
is no, that is a ballsy move that trusts your audience to allow
Yes.
this first one to just be a straight up downer. Like, there's not a happy moment. We see her sitting looking out windows. An animal gets injured. She gets her toy taken. I mean, like, it
Yeah.
is bleak from
It's called
start to finish.
Confined. That's the name of the episode, Confined. And like, you
Yeah.
feel as you're watching it confined with them. Like, we don't get Hunter and Wrecker and anybody else in this. This first episode is, I imagine, Bad Batch, the target audience of this was probably like 10-year-old kids and 11-year-old kids when this first came out. And now they're aging up. They're like
Yeah.
14, 15, whatever. They're watching this now and just like, oh my God, life
Yeah.
sucks. Like, there's no hope
They're
here.
having the experience we had with Empire. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, trust kids to be able to see something a little dark. They'll be okay.
yeah,
And I think that's actually one of the strengths of this. And I love the way that they show the passage of time. Like, we see her hair changing, we see the
yeah,
numbers on the wall. And obviously that is representing, I think, a really big change in Omega herself. There is a maturing that necessarily has to happen in this, and I think it's a great way to kind of like put us in a different head. Like, she is a different person 5 months later than
yeah.
she was when she walked in that door.
And they do
Um,
they do those little things like when like Nala Se is taking her blood, or Emery or whatever is taking her blood, whatever. And when it first happens,
mhm.
she's like, "Ow!" Like, it hurts. And then
Yeah.
by week 10 or whatever, she's so dead when it does it. She doesn't even have a reaction to it. And it's just like these little tiny moments. And you're right. This feels
Wow.
like a very mature thing.
Mhm.
There's no goofiness, there's no fun. She goes and
No.
tries to see Crosshair, and Crosshair's like, get out of my face, like, I don't I don't want to deal with you, leave. But the cool thing about Omega, and then we'll get into as we get into like episode 3, is that like, you can't like kill her spirit. It's very Luke Skywalker-esque from the original trilogy. Honestly, it's very Luke
Mhm.
Skywalker, and
Mhm.
we'll find out.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a reason why Omega is the way she is. But yeah,
Mhm.
what else happened in this episode? I'm sorry, I
So, well,
sidetracked
we're
you.
also introduced to a new character, a new Batcher, which is
Yeah,
a Lorca hound that she befriends. It's kind of the odd one out. It's the maybe the smallest of them. She refuses to eat, and of course, Omega being Omega, she starts like saving her food and domesticating her. And I mean, as a Star Wars book reading nerd, it was exciting to see the Lorca wolves, which
yeah.
like I'm like, "Come on, introduce Talon Card, do it, just do it."
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, my ring light just went out. Oh,
light
okay, there we go.
poof.
Apparently the answer is no. The universe says no Talon Card for me.
I Matt Nito did
Um,
from Nebraska.
yes, from a that's how good you are. That's your powers are growing. You can reach across time zones now to break
Yes.
things. So, yeah, we see kind of the arc of this, which results in she's domesticates her, she heals her, she survives, and then the Empire wants to, anything, any fostering, any warmth, any love, any
Yeah.
gentleness, it immediately puts her on the chopping block to be euthanized. And this is where we see, like, up until this point, pretty discouraged Omega, the other part of her, the indomitable Omega, emerge,
Yeah.
and fearlessly,
Yeah.
willing to sacrifice herself,
Yeah.
sets
And
this Lorca wolf free.
yeah, and that's the thing because it kind of parallels back. Crosshair has done so much bad shit to her and to the rest of the Bad Batch. I mean, he's fully embraced the Empire. He's straight up murdered people. He has basically caused so much pain to her and everybody else she loves. But I think it's just so great where like she will not leave him. She goes down there and is like, she's always like, I got to find a way out. I'm trying to figure out a way. Help me, Crosshair. And he's like, go away. Like, there's no hope. There is no hope at all. We're fucked. We're done. It's
Yeah.
over. And she's like, I'm not gonna leave without you. So you're going, and you start seeing just in the little reactions of Crosshair. When she walks away, like, I'm not gonna leave you, and I'll find a way. And he leaves. And then they do that little thing where they just cut to Crosshair, and he just kind of like looks over, and you could tell that he's just kind of thinking he's starting to warm to her a little bit, right? Because I actually watched a YouTuber, and the YouTuber was kind of noted a thing where he always used to just call her kid, the kid, the kid, and then eventually over the course of this, he calls her Omega by her name, which I hadn't noticed. I didn't notice when I was kind of watching it, but he was like, yeah, he did just call her the kid, and he was kind of dismissive, and he didn't want to bring her along with any of this stuff with the rest of what they were doing and stuff like that. So yeah, I love the sort of slow burn feeling to this whole first episode. I thought it was
I am
perfect.
a sucker for a wolf and cub story. Like, that is always gonna get to me, and that's kind of what this turns into, except for in some ways, Omega is the wolf and he is the cub, which is an
Yeah, that's
interesting
true.
reversal.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I like the fact, like, and Star Wars always is great creating new sort of like adorable creatures, right? And it's
Yeah.
like this wolf, you're
Yeah.
like, okay, just give me an action figure of it because I want it, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And Dave Filoni loves wolves, so he's going to put a different variation of a wolf in everything he does, which is fine.
Yeah.
It looks awesome. Also, I will say, internet, the wolf they establish is a female character, so hopefully we could still watch the show without having to freak out about a female wolf being
Oh, that's
saved and becoming
3 female characters now in the episode.
too many, too
Ooh,
many, too many.
too many, too
Um,
many.
I do think it's cool. Like you had a great quote. I think it was a few episodes back about what Dave Filoni's role is. Like he's the greatest janitor,
He's
and
the greatest janitor.
I feel like this is Dave Filoni attempting to like I'm going to clean up the sequel trilogy as best I can in this. This is how we're going to get from the Bad Batch to Emperor
Yep.
Palpatine. How did he return again? Because even more so than in The Mandalorian season 3, where they kind of touched on it a little bit, this seems explicit, and we find out more in episode 3. But this is just kind of like, okay, Omega obviously has a very high midichlorian count, as we will come to find. What's the linkage with her? Where is she in this sort of like familial tree? Where is she linked to Rey somewhere down the past? Like, where exactly is all this going? But we will find out. Anything else in this first episode that you wanted to mention or toss out? Did we miss anything?
I don't think so. I mean, we do see. I mean,
Hemlock's great, by
Hemlock
the way.
threatens her. Yeah,
He's
Hemlock
so
is he's such a great villain.
What's
The
up with
way
his hand? He's always holding that hand with one black glove on it, and he's always like holding it like this. Did you notice that? Every time he
we're gonna
walks,
find out it's a robot hand.
I don't know. I don't know.
Hmm.
But I don't know if it's a robot hand, but he's always holding his hand like this when he walks into a room, like he's rubbing his hand or something, and he's just got one black glove on. I don't know.
That's something.
It's weird.
That is definitely something. I mean, I think he's a super interesting villain, and Star Wars is known for making great villains. And every time you think, oh, they've done it all, they introduce another really great one. He is, from the way he's designed to the work that Jimmy Simpson is doing with the voice acting,
Oh, so
that
good.
just absolutely chilling, sociopathic, quiet menace that he
Yeah.
delivers is so impressive. And it's still like we've seen him a few times now, and it's still absolutely working. When he's threatening Omega and he's just like, "You stupid child, do you really think you just saved that animal?" Like, all he believes that with absolute certitude, and he has, because he doesn't know about her yet, she is in so much more danger than she thinks, and he could crush her, but
Yeah.
instead, he puts the screws to her in the most effective and painful way he could, which is threatening Crosshair.
Oh yeah, yeah. Where he was just like, "Oh, well, I don't have to do anything to you. I can do something to Crosshair. He's just a clone. I
Right.
can do whatever I want to him." And she freaks out at that point, where she's like, "No,
Yeah.
no, no, don't do anything like that." But he is so effective. And that's a cool. I mean, Star Wars always has great villains. Always,
Yeah.
they just create
Yeah.
these awesome,
Mhm.
deliciously evil characters, and it's. I don't know. I don't know why within this kind of property, like you look at Marvel movies, right? It's like how many good villains have been in Marvel movies? Very few. You could probably count them on less than five fingers.
Just say
But it just,
Zemo, it's fine.
I love Zemo.
I
Zemo is
know! That's
amazing.
the one!
Yeah,
That's the
Zemo.
one.
I think Thanos was a cool villain. I think if you want to call him a villain, I guess. But Thanos is pretty good.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
What is going on with my light?
that was me. See,
Yeah, I
Thanos.
guess I gotta quit
Thanos.
disagreeing with you. My
Yeah.
thing keeps turning off. But
Uh,
yeah, he I think you can't out Vader, right? So you have to go in a different direction. And I think he's so calculating and
yeah.
cruel. It's a different genre of villain, and one that chills me. And considering how much of this show has become so textual in the way that it addresses fascism and has historical context to so much of what's going on, to introduce like a Heinrich Himmler character feels very correct in this moment.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
This is awesome. This is
Damn it!
great. This is great.
Damn it!
Great video here.
I gotta figure out what's going on here.
That's okay. You go ahead and figure that out.
I'm listening.
Yeah, the other thing I guess I'll say about this episode is it sort of like you mentioned how it subverts expectations. I would have guessed at some point we would have cut to Wrecker and Hunter, right? Searching for Omega or figuring out like they don't show them at all. And I think it's
No.
perfect. It's absolutely perfect because I'm just like, these Omega and Crosshair are the two best characters of the Bad Batch themselves, in my opinion. They have the
Yeah, now the
best.
tech's down.
They have the best stories. I mean, yeah, Tech was cool as well,
Yeah.
but I don't think he had like the arc that these two
Mm-mm.
have. These are like you could tell Dave Filoni was like, these are my two characters that I like the best, and this is what I want to do with these particular characters. And I think just having us sit with them was the perfect way. And then it just ends on a very sort of downer of a note. It's like there's no help. No one's coming.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like Omega's got her little, was it like a Tuca doll or something? She's made like she's got that lunch
Yeah.
pail and she's hiding stuff in it. And she's got that Tuca thing that she gave a Wrecker, right? Didn't Wrecker
Mhm.
have that weird doll at one point?
Yeah.
And it just ends with her like looking out the window. And then it just kind of silently ends and rolls credits. You're like,
I
wow,
know.
rough.
I know. I think that, and I don't know. I think that if there is some cynical version of like a studio intervention that would be like, no, 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 that's not going to sell toys. Like you can't have your heroes be this sad for the entire runtime. I mean, I
Yeah,
think it's also why they released multiple episodes in the first one, because it is such a bummer, but I still
good point.
absolutely respect it.
Good
Yeah.
point. Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because
Mhm.
yeah, if they would have just released one episode, I think people would have been like, "What the hell is this? Like, where
What
are
is
we?"
this cartoon?
It's just, and we've noted that like it's almost like a running joke now because I've seen even memes of it like on Instagram and stuff where people are like, oh yeah, people say Bad Batch is just a kid show, and then it's like Crosshair murdering people getting shoved off of things, people just dying left and right. Like there's a little more adult stuff in here than people think, and this was a very adult
Yeah.
episode, and I loved it. Loved it.
Absolutely. And to be honest, the second episode really does. I mean, it's because Wrecker is there and he's so camp, like that's gonna just automatically. It's a vibe shift for sure.
Yeah.
But but at the same time, it's still not like that swashbuckling adventure that it could easily have led into, right?
Yeah.
We see the emotional and psychological impacts of what happened in the last episode continuing into this. And I appreciate that because, again, I didn't want the impact and the import of the sacrifices and the losses and the failures of the last season to
Yeah.
just get brushed under the rug.
So let's
So
talk about episode 2, Paths Unknown. What is this one all about?
yeah, so this one opens up like this is very Return of the Jedi style. Like we get them we show up on I don't remember the name of the planet, but it is run by the Durand crime family, which by the way, all this crime lord stuff is totally untapped. I hope someday we get something in this world because the more I see of it, the more compelled I am. Like I
Well,
want the Godfather of Star Wars.
George Lucas had like 95 scripts written for that Underworld television
Yeah.
series that he wanted to do, and everyone's like, "That's too expensive. We can't do it," and so he never got to make it.
Damn it.
Yeah, the
Well,
whole
they
idea.
still exist, so maybe someday we'll get a circle back
Maybe.
because I want that. So we like I said, we meet the Durand crime family, and it's led again by a woman because feminism. Ha
I
ha.
almost shut it off. I couldn't take it.
Well, I hope you immediately put on a Joe Rogan to get that
Oh,
T back up. Got to get that T level up. The M, you know about the M counts? Let me tell you about the T counts.
key counts, yes. Yeah, and they
So,
show that guy. His one horn's been cut off. He's been completely emasculated. What is this show trying to tell me here? I don't like it.
that
Actually, I
part
love
right
it.
there.
Weird. Actually, I love it.
So they bring in a traitor who she sacrifices because he gets mouthy. And I'm like, wait, where do I get that button for the podcast? I can just drop everybody down a trapdoor.
Did that not sound like Clancy Brown a bit? Like I could have swore that was Clancy Brown's voice, but
Oh,
it might not have been. But it
could have been.
sounded Clancy-esque. But it was so quick. I figured they would have because he played a Durian in Mando, so
He sure did.
I don't know if he maybe came back, and I don't know. Don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean,
I didn't
he's
look.
done a few different voices and because
Yeah,
he also did voices in Rebels and stuff. So
I'll look it
I
up.
wouldn't be surprised. I mean, like the man likes to cash a check and good for him if he does. So then we get in our next round, and this time it's one of the Pikes, and they're being brought in by Wrecker and Hunter. And this is the person who emasculated the other Durian and took off his horn and, emasculated his whole family.
Yeah.
And in return, they get intel about where they believe Hemlock's secret laboratory base is. So with this information, they head off to this other planet and discover basically a abandoned Imperial cloning facility that previously Hemlock had been in charge of, but he had left and like nuked it from orbit, essentially. Um,
The Empire loves to do that. They just love to just blow things up.
it's the only way to be sure, Matthew. It's the
That's
only
true.
way to be sure.
True.
So, but they didn't get everybody. There are 3 little baby clones left, well, not baby, but like teen clones, Mock, Zeke, and Stack, who escaped before the bombing, but are now left on this planet that is just in absolute decline. And we find out the reason is some scientific experiment went wrong with these slither vines, and they're slowly tentacling out and choking the life out of this planet. If that is not a metaphor for the empire and fascism, I don't know what is, but it's great.
Yeah.
And we get another one of these sort of, this is like this era of Star Wars loves to have an aliens episode. There's been
Yep.
there's been multiple of them, and this is this season's. We get these like Slithervine creatures, all these different versions of this monster, um, on the planet. And
I got
what's
some Resident
interesting,
Evil vibes too. Like this felt very
ooh,
Umbrella. Umbrella has, something has
yes.
gone out of control, especially with the vines
Yes.
crawling around and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect example. Yes, absolutely. So they need to get to there's like one console left that may have some data about where they went, but they need help getting in there and it's just completely overrun by these vines. So one of the three agrees to go with him because he's smart and wants to get off the freaking planet with these people with the ship. While the other two, like, basically as soon as they leave, start plotting to steal the ship and take off. But I do think there's some really parallels here kind of to the dynamics between these clones and then obviously the divisions that have happened within the Bad Batch. Like there's something intrinsic, like there's something about the survival and this idea of loyalty that is often undercut by the need to survive. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, well,
Works out. Yeah.
the other clones that were there with them left them because they're like, we have
Yeah.
orders. We're not going to help you escape this place before the Empire bombards it. We're going to leave you with the Slithervines. And one of the cool
Yeah.
things about this is like they're very suspicious of Wrecker and Hunter when they show up. But then over the course of the episode, they're like, wait a minute, these clones are different. They don't leave us. Like, they're loyal. One of them actually says, like, you guys are loyal, which kind of blows their mind, right? Because they just saw every other clone that they've ever known abandon them to die on this planet, and they're very bitter and jaded and struggling
Mhm.
to survive. And so I like the fact that, even Hunter and Wrecker, like, we'll get you off this planet. They go in there, that's like, they're not like, we demand you take us where we need to go. They're like, look, we'll help you get off this planet. We just need to help find someone who's missing. One of our crew is missing, and we will go till the ends of the earth or the ends of the slither vines to find that person. And I think it really makes those kids sort of bond with them in a way. They're like, wow, especially the older kid, because Mox, I think that was his name.
Yeah.
Mox is the one
Yeah.
that they kind of both look up to, and then the younger
Yeah.
one's like, I'll do it. I'm going to go, help them out and whatnot. So I like that idea that,
Mhm.
Hunter, and who can't like Wrecker when they meet him. I
I
love that
know.
moment. They're like, are you with the Empire? And Wrecker's like, do we look like we're with the Empire? Like, we don't look. It's like, come on, little kid. And that little kid's got like a stick, and Wrecker's like, haha, blaster beats stick, sort of thing. That's like, and I think you needed a little bit of Wrecker levity after that first episode. Like, you
Yeah.
needed him to pop in and do his
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, this
But there's
episode
a
was
good
just
balance.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not overly
Yeah.
funny.
No, but, like, you're right, like, Wrecker gonna Wrecker. Like, that's
Yeah.
just who he is, and that speaks to how well defined that character is. When I think back, my first impression of Wrecker, I was like, "Ugh, cliche." I've seen this sort of, like, tank-like character a million times who's, like, dumb and here for the comic relief, but they have done such a good job of infusing him with so much, like, heart that
He
even my crusty old ass can't help but love him a little bit. Well, a
he
lot
had
bit.
Yeah, he has that great moment in this episode where, Hunter's like, we're fucking going, because they can't get a hold of Echo and they can't get a hold of Rex, but they have this sort of, and he's like, we're going, and Wrecker's like, dude, hold up. Remember the last time we went and attacked an Imperial base? We didn't all come back. He had that moment. It's not like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
dumb Wrecker, but he's like, those
No.
moments of realization. And the moment or the thing that I was going to get to at the beginning about, that made me think about this episode, it's when Hunter is sitting by the console of the ship and he's just kind of like doing something. He's kind of like the main focus of the frame, but in the
Mhm.
foreground, sitting on the console, are Tech's destroyed goggles.
Oh, I
They're
missed
sitting there
that.
in the.
Holy
I know.
shit.
If you
So
don't
they
look
went
at
and
it
got him.
exactly, because it's like right in the foreground, but it's like you don't notice it because your eyes are directed towards what Hunter's doing. But if you look over, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, holy shit, they went and got him. Like, they went back and they recovered his body, and now they have his destroyed goggles sitting there as a reminder. I'm like, this is so sad. I mean, that would have been real sad to show a kid, going
Yeah.
back and
Yeah,
finding
I
his
didn't
body.
need to yeah.
But it's those
Keeping
little
yeah.
things, and like they'll just put it in the frame, and it shows so much forethought and care by the creators of the
Yeah.
show to layer those elements in. If you're watching, you'll see it, and then it'll just hit you different. So I saw those goggles, I'm like, Oh man.
Oh, man.
Oh
Yeah, because you
man.
draw the conclusion. I think it's also really smart, right? Because we also, as fans, are so conspiratorial. We would just be like, when's he coming back? He's going to come back. This is where Tech shows up, right? Tech's going to be back. Like, there would be this whole grand
Yeah.
conspiracy of the, return of Tech. So it's smart to kind of like close that door. No, he
I
is.
hope they don't bring him back. Like I hope he
I don't
doesn't come
think
back.
so. I
Hope
really,
not.
really would be shocked at this point because I do think, like you said, adding that little detail really kind of puts a
Yeah.
period on it for me. I also, as
Some
you were
death must be
talking,
final. Some death in Star Wars
they have
must
to
be
be.
final, right? We're dealing with storylines with the Emperor trying to clone himself to live forever, which is what Darth Plagueis wanted. He wanted to live forever
Mhm.
and cheat death. It all goes back to what it makes sense with the prequels and what Palpatine would be attempting to do. All that makes sense, but so much is like I don't want Gideon to come back. I want him to be dead.
No.
Like I don't,
Yes.
John Favreau, do not bring Gideon back. I don't. I mean, I know the actor's great. Everybody loves him, but we don't want him to come back over and over and over again. There must be some death that's final in Star Wars, and I think Tech's death is just beautifully poetic. He died in a way to help his brothers escape and live, and if you bring him back, it cheapens that. Cheapens the finale of season 2, I think.
Totally. Agree. Hardest of hard degrees. I was also kind of thinking about something you were saying in terms of the way that the clones have mistrust because of things they've done. And like I know we think of Order 66 being the genocide of the Jedi, which it is, but it also is kind of the first domino falling in, not just because it like sets in motion all of the things that happen that lead to Palpatine genociding the clones, but it also does something to the psyche and the trust between the clones that allows them to become vulnerable, because together they could have been
Yeah.
an overwhelming force, but it sowed that seed of doubt that turned brother against brother in a way that they will never be able to be collectively strong enough again to push back against the Empire. And it
Yeah.
really, I don't, it just clicked for me for the first time as you were saying. I was like, God, that's so bleak and also so true to human nature. It's
Yeah.
heartbreaking, but
And
so good.
there's definitely like clones, and I think we've seen this in other Star Wars media where it's like the chip goes off, right? And they know what
Mhm.
they're doing is wrong, but they can't stop themselves from doing it. They have to
Yeah.
do it because that's what they're programmed and trained to do. Like soldiers follow orders, good soldiers follow. And so there's also that sort of internal conflict. They can't trust themselves. It's not literally
Yeah.
just their brothers around, but it's like I literally cannot trust myself to do what I
Mhm.
know is right, but I'm doing what's wrong because of and a lot of them don't even know they got the chips in them. They
Right.
just change, right? A switch is literally flipped, and suddenly they are completely different people doing completely different things. And then they see what happens when Palpatine kind of gets rid of them all with this underhanded, hey, yeah, we're gonna get rid of all the clones, we're gonna blame them for
Yeah.
bombing ships and stuff like that, and now we're gonna replace them all. And there's even, I think, even in Obi-Wan in that show, didn't they have Tamora Morrison, like Obi-Wan walks up on that street corner and he's a clone trooper, but he's just laying in there in the street homeless, and he's like, got a few credits for an old clone trooper or something like that.
Uh-huh.
There's little moments where it's just like you like you said, you don't trust yourself anymore, you don't trust anybody, and then the entire kind of republic that you were defending completely tosses you aside. Very
Mhm.
Vietnam-esque, like George Lucas when Star
Literally
Wars
was
came
thinking
out.
the same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Vietnam-esque. Sad.
The disposability of this entire people. Oh, it's so good. It's just so well done. And
Yeah.
you'd think that the metaphor would wear out, but it's just such a timeless story that
Yep.
it feels just as relevant post, you know, Vietnam as sadly as it does right freaking now.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's why it's our timeless myth, right? It is our
Yeah.
generation, our eras. This
Absolutely.
is yeah. So they manage to hack into this console, but they don't necessarily get what they want, which again, totally subverts your expectations because you're like, okay, they're
Yeah.
gonna figure it out. They're gonna be on the case. They're gonna be the ones to somehow break in and heist and like get everybody out. But instead, they fail. They
And this
fail.
comes full circle at the end of episode 4, which we'll talk about, because Hunter has a great line to Omega at the end of episode 4 about, we were looking for you, but you found us, right? And so it was just like,
Well,
oh, it's so
sexually
good
princess.
because they keep failing, which they should. They should keep
Right.
failing. It should not
Right.
be easy to find the Emperor Palpatine's secret cloning lair. I mean, two dudes in a
No.
spaceship should not be able to find it.
And like I would argue that the Empire is at the peak of its power right now. If it were
Yeah.
easy to defeat the Empire,
Yeah.
and they would not be as powerful as they are right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, another really interesting. It's not my favorite of the episodes because it doesn't have Crosshair and Omega in it, but it was another. If this is what the treasure episodes are going to look like this season, this season is going to be unbelievable.
Yeah. Because they find basically this vine monster. The big finale is the vine monster turns into it's essentially a sarlacc with giant tentacles, and they get all the clone kids to throw the thermal detonators in there, blow it up, and then they sort of fly off. But there's that great moment. It's again, that's all cool. That's your action, right? Because there's no action in the first episode, so like we got to get some action in here for people, spiced up. That's why they split this one and put it in between 1 and 3, I think. But there's again that great moment with it's just Wrecker hanging out with these kids. And like they don't focus on what the story is that Wrecker's telling them, but Wrecker's just having fun with these kids, and the kids are like, wow, there's somebody here who didn't leave us to die, and they're having fun. And then Hunter's just like looking at him, and it's just one of those, it's just that moment of wow, like there's a small recreation of what it was like to have Omega back on the ship, where everyone's happy, right? And then people are laughing and happy. It's been so shitty, but this one little thing they did sort of helps them moving forward, I think. And ultimately, they're like, "Did you get any of the data?" I don't know. It says there could be something in this sector. I guess we'll just go look and find out. And I could have swore at the end of this, I'm like, all right, we're gonna follow them heading to a planet, searching for Omega and them, and we're gonna follow them for a while. Nope. What's the next one? Shadows of Tantus. Let's. What happens in episode 3?
Well, I mean, I think they say like this is kind of a hopeless chase. Let's go back to where maybe there's a chance like these people are going to have to rescue themselves. Essentially, is like what that lead into this is. So we're back on what is it, Wayland at Mount Tantus.
Weyland-Yutani.
See,
it's Wayland. Yeah, it's very alien.
All coming together. Yep. So, okay, and we find out that your boy Emperor Palpatine is headed to come check out the progress on the most important project that is happening in the entire Empire.
Yes.
So, of course, and that's Project Necromancer, because here comes Filoni with that broom.
Yeah. And what's so cool about this is like opening this episode, it's like it's rinse repeat. Omega's doing the same daily routine, but she's like, why is it so busy here today? Like, there's a hustle and bustle around that isn't here normally. What's sort of going on? Don't worry about it. Don't worry. It's nothing. Oh, it's something.
Yeah.
It's something.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, like it really does speak to how good Filoni is what he does, because we're 3 episodes in, there's another one, and it's all Project Necromancer related, and I could not be more invested.
He has done more to explain the sequel trilogy in roughly 10 minutes of screen time over the course of these episodes than we have gotten over multiple seasons of Mandalorian, the sequel trilogy itself. It's the famous meme of somehow Palpatine returned. And Dave Filoni's like, yeah, I'm just going to solve it now so that we don't need to worry about it. And he's doing it in the most logical way. Now, some Star Wars fans might be like, ugh, okay, they're going to have to explain it. But come on, he's going to have to clean it up. They're not going to allow him to get rid of 7, 8, 9 and retcon everything. No. He's got to clean it up, and I trust in his ability to clean it up because he's already done the prequels. He cleaned up the prequels with George Lucas.
Yep,
he can show that he can do it.
And you know what? I cannot wait to go and enjoy the sequels, like I did when I went back after watching all of Clone Wars, rewatched the prequels, and was like, yeah, that was pretty good. Like, I'm ready to have that experience. Like, I don't want to not like them. I'm excited for the future and enjoying those movies.
Yeah.
Although he's gonna have to work real hard not to make the hate Kanto bite, but that's a problem for another day.
He's going to have to
So
work real hard to fix Luke Skywalker. I don't know if that's possible.
if he does that, oh my god.
It'd be
Like
incredible.
he's no longer the janitor. He's Star Wars Jesus.
Yeah, pretty
He
much.
should make you like
Pretty
the
much.
Luke arc. Okay, so because Palpatine is showing up, we're gonna need Nala Se to go and get an audience with him, which means that for the first time in all of these months, when Omega gives her daily blood sample, it's gonna be tested properly and not deleted. So Nala Se pulls her to the side and tells her, take my, I don't know what it's called, my lightning stone, and use it to get the
Skedaddle.
hell out of here. Yeah,
Get out. Get out.
scram, kid.
Run.
And she's Nala Se is an interesting character, right? Because she's so like lacking affectation. You can assign anything to it. It can feel really sinister as it does in the
Yeah.
prequels. Or here it can be very calming and nurturing, but you never actually know. And I think in this case, I don't I feel like I kind of now know where she lands. It could still be that this is like her greatest creation, but why would she make Omega the way that she is? But it could also be that she genuinely has affection for the girl, and I'm leaning towards that. But I've always been a
Yeah.
little suspect.
I hope that it's sort of like she sees Omega as her daughter, and it's like a mother trying to protect a daughter sort of thing. Yeah, she's a clone, and she created her.
Mhm.
But I hope it's not one of those things where it's like, this is just my greatest scientific creation, and I don't want the
Right.
Empire to get a hold of it. I think she genuinely cares for Omega and Omega's well-being, and I don't think things are going to turn out well for Nala Se. I don't think, but we kind of
No.
see what the plan, what's happening here in this weird centrifuge, right? That's sort of going around,
Yeah.
and basically they're trying to take Hemlock has been tasked by the Emperor to check all these different clone blood samples. They drop other bloods, which is that? Is that Emperor Palpatine's blood? Is that the Emperor's blood dropping in there to see if the midichlorian count matches up with
Seems like
his?
it.
Because he makes that comment. He's like, or Hemlock makes that comment. He's like, we need something the same or higher than whoever the host blood is. Seems like it's Emperor's blood, right? And they're trying to connect or find something that'll work. Probably why we'll find out. That's why Grogu is,
I
you
was like,
know,
where's Grogu in this timeline? Has he? It's so hard for me to keep track.
Grogu.
Has
So this would
Grogu
be
been taken?
yes, because he was
Or
taken out
is
of the
he
Jedi
Grogu
Temple
man?
during Order 66. So while Anakin was chopping up all the younglings, Jar Jar, the actor who played Ahmad Best, he took Grogu out, but we don't know what happened to Grogu after that
Well, we
time.
know that there was a period of time where Grogu was in Imperial hands before Mando comes back for him, and they were like testing him and taking his blood when Mando came back
Right.
and rescued him.
Yeah,
So
because
what I'm
that's part of
wondering is
season two.
is
Yeah.
this post that or pre that? Because it could also be Grogu's, but it doesn't
It
ultimately matter. But I'm just curious.
it'd be pre that because all of Mandalorian takes place after Return of the Jedi. So this would
Okay.
take place. This takes
Okay.
place. I don't know how many years past Order 66 we are. I would imagine 3 or 4 years. So yeah, we would be at
Right.
roughly 15 to 20 years before Grogu gets
Okay.
taken by the Imperials.
Okay, cool. So then that's definitely Emperor's blood. I feel confident that it is the Emperor's blood.
Please
The only
don't
other
bring
thing,
Grogu into this, please.
right?
I don't want
Please.
Grogu to be part of this timeline here.
Yeah, no. This is the grown-up this is the grown-up animated show, okay? Save the kiddie stuff for the live action Mandalorian.
Yes.
So Omega takes the advice, grabs the data pad. I see I wrote it down here, so I did know the word for it at one point. And uses it to, of course, go help Crosshair. And it was I was wondering if she was gonna set everybody free because we didn't talk about it, but there was this great line earlier where Crosshair is like, if you get a chance to go. I deserve to be here. I belong here.
Yeah.
And she's like, nobody deserves to be here. None of
Yes.
these people deserve to be here.
Yes.
And I think that might have been one of those moments that like cracked him a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, because they, they
So
they show his face after she walks away. Again, they don't just
I-
cut when she walks; they cut back to his face, and you can just tell. But the animation and everything, it's like, yeah, this girl's getting to me. He's like, God damn it, she's getting to me. She's getting to me. I'm starting to like this little brat.
you can't help yourself. I mean, even we like went on that journey and love her now.
Yep.
So yeah, so she frees Crosshair and she takes advantage of the fact that she knows these kennels and there's a way to get out through them, and they escape through those kennels and head toward the crash shuttle.
I love. Hold on. I love
Yeah.
Crosshair during this whole thing where he gets
Yeah.
out and he's still like, "You got a plan? Like, what's your bright idea?" She's like, "I don't know. I'm just kind of making this stuff up. Let's go." And he's just constantly like, "Oh my god, oh my god." He's one of those. I love Crosshair's attitude because it's a you would think a normal character would be happy. All right, I'm out. All right, let's figure it out. But
Right.
the whole time he's just like, God, we're screwed. This is, and then
Yeah.
we should like find out that the Emperor's coming, and I love Crosshair's like, you literally picked the worst day to try to break out of this place. It was great. I was laughing. It was so great. I love that guy. I love Crosshair. It's gonna
Yeah, and
crush me
their
when he dies.
dynamic, I know it's gonna be real sad when he dies, but it's
Yeah.
gonna be like sad in that way that also feels so good.
It's gonna have something to do with that twitch he's got in his hand. Like
Yeah.
he's gonna continue to get worse and worse throughout the season,
Yep.
and he's gonna have to like lock in and hit that one miracle shot or something, like calm himself, or maybe Omega helps calms him with the Force or something, and he's able to hit the shot that wins. And I think I mentioned in the chat, I was like, I have never wanted to see more. Never wanted more to see a Omega Crosshair buddy cop space adventure series more than after this episode. I was like, can we just do
Yeah.
a side tangent for 6 months of just these guys going around the galaxy doing shit? Be amazing.
Yeah, there is something that is just like, I don't know, in my lizard brain that like a plucky young heroine and like a grumpy kind of bird with a broken wing older character. Like that is a dynamic that I just am compelled by. And this earned it because we're
Yeah.
in season 3 and we've watched these two characters grow into a place where this doesn't feel like a cliche and they're so fully formed as characters. It's just a great experiment to see how they bounce off each other, and it's working. Like when there was like a episode where Omega, it was one of the treasure episodes where she has a similar situation with Tech. And as much as I love Tech, it did not hit like this. This hits different.
Yep.
And I think it's because Tech had like his arc was that episode. We've had since episode 1 the arc with Crosshair. And so it like earned. It's really earned.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just all their interactions with one another. Even going into when we talk about episode 4, it's just like it's just perfect. Like the writing is perfect, the direction of the episodes is perfect, and it's just like, man,
Mhm.
this is kind of like, I don't want to say this is like peak Star Wars, because obviously we came off Andor, and Andor is what I
Andor.
consider peak Star Wars right now. But I'm just watching these episodes. I'm like, this is so high up there. Like it is so high. That's why I tell Steve, I'm like, Steve, let me just curate you the Crosshair stuff, because Steve would
He would
love
love
this.
it.
He would
He would love
absolutely
it.
love this character and where this is going.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Yeah, absolutely. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. I think what it is it's a reminder that really the highs are it's not like, Star Wars is kind of crummy and then occasionally it's great. I actually think it's mostly really good,
Yep.
and our expectations are so high when it's just all right, it feels bad. But it's not bad, it's just all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Last Jedi's bad.
Okay.
Rise of Skywalker is bad, but
Mm,
I hear what you're putting out into the universe, and I
yeah.
believe you, and I support you, because I think, and I had mentioned this, when Steve's like, oh, Steve and Ronan, oh, Star Wars sucks, it's all, blah blah. It's like, it doesn't suck. There's so much other content out there that we are consuming. It's like, yeah, you might watch the
Yeah.
Obi-Wan show and hate it and think, oh, okay, all Star Wars sucks. It's like, no, I mean, Bad Batch is going on this whole time, and we've loved this show. Clone War, like season 7 of the Clone Wars, That is
Get the fuck out of here.
incredible.
Yeah.
That is
Yes.
incredible stuff. And it's just like there's so much cool stuff out there with Star Wars. You're going to get some rotten eggs every once in a while. We hope they're not in the big movies that come out, but sometimes they are. And then we have the great Dave Filoni here, the janitor extraordinaire, to clean it all up slowly but surely. Other franchises don't have him. Yes.
No, by volume, I would say like the vast majority of it is pretty great.
Sure.
Cool. So one thing I forgot, because I said they escaped, is that there is an interaction between Emery, Crosshair, and Omega.
Yeah.
And this dynamic, like I said, between her and Emery is so interesting to me, because we've seen a lot of brothers. This is the only time we see sisters. And it's interesting to kind of see what this sisterhood connection looks like there, and to try to read Emery. Emery's another person who's super tough to read, like Nala say, and has some degree of sort of like detachment, like Hemlock. Obviously not Hemlock, but I'm curious where this is going, because I do not think we're done with this character. I do think that we're going to get to see some shifts. There's an arc happening here.
Oh yeah. At some point,
have any predictions? I have a theory, but I want to hear your prediction about Emery.
My prediction is that at some point Hemlock's gonna get Omega. Like they're gonna get her, and she's gonna go back, whatever. And I think Emery is gonna be the one that helps her escape somehow or gets out. Because there's that great moment where, was it Hemlock that when they discovered the little doll, whatever, and he's like, burn it or get rid of it or something?
Well, she takes it and she's like, this is for your own good. You can't have personal items.
Yeah, but then she brings it back to her kind of like later on of that kind of moment. So I definitely think she's going to be integral in Omega escaping when Hemlock eventually gets her back somehow.
So here's my theory. Because again, nerdy book reader.
Sure.
So she was someone who she's told this story about how Hemlock came and like saved her in some way or something, has like very much indoctrinated her. And they have this sort of like second and first command kind of vibe. What this feels like to me, and the thing is I guarantee you there's something way darker and more sinister that either Emery doesn't know about or has somehow sort of like psychologically broke from. This to me feels like Rook and Thrawn.
Oh,
I think Emery
she's taken out Hemlock.
I think she's taken out Hemlock.
Ooh, interesting.
That is my theory. But I don't know. We'll find out in like 10 more episodes. But like my theory, I feel like we're seeing parallels of that dynamic. And I could definitely see her in the end when they do eventually get her.
I like
her waiting, shanking him in the back. And that's going to be so satisfying.
I like this. I'm channeling my inner janitorial Dave Filoni right now. and thinking to myself, who are the main players doing Project Necromancer at this point in the time period, roughly 15 to 20 years before Mandalorian? If Hemlock dies, that sets back Project Necromancer many, many years. If Nala Se dies, that sets it back many, many years. So, maybe that's where this is leading up to. It's like, all right, we're not gonna follow this storyline for the next 20 years. We have to essentially kill this storyline here. Set it all up. This is what happened. Boom. The leadership, everyone who knows how to do cloning and the great scientists, they're all taken out. They're gone. So then we have to try to restart this later on in the Mandalorian time frame with Gideon and all those, and the remnants who are still trying to bring it back. I like that idea. I'm on board with it. Now I hope it happens.
Okay. Me too. I want a heroic sort of end for Emery. Like, I don't think it's going to end well for her. I think the penultimate episode of the series is going to be a heartbreaker. We're going to lose a lot of people, and I think Emery's one of them, and I think she's going to do it heroically.
Yeah, I love that idea. That's an awesome, awesome idea. I hope it comes to pass. There's an interesting moment with my boy Palpatine, who my fiance calls him Ovaltine. She's like, "Oh, Emperor Ovaltine." I was like, "Stop calling him that."
I love her haterade. It's so good.
Stop calling this man this amazing,
the most wholesome burn.
um, where he's walking with Hemlock, and he's walking back to his shuttle, and Palpatine never says anything unless it's important, like it's a deliberately important statement, and he mentions that there are people in the Empire that would not approve of what him and Hemlock are doing. He mentions that specifically, and so
Mhm.
I was watching
Mhm.
a YouTube thing, just sort of speculating on like, well, who is Palpatine talking about? Who in the Empire would not be okay with this sort of genetic experimentation and living forever and stuff? I'm going to pose it to
Mm.
you before I say who this YouTuber thinks would have a problem with it. But who in the Empire right now do you think would have a problem with clones and doing sort of genetic manipulation and letting the Emperor sort of maintain power forever?
I
Does
mean, it's
anybody come
hard
to mind?
because I'm struggling because I'm like I have trouble placing where everybody is in the timeline. But like who would it be? Here's the thing is who would be someone who could even pose a threat to the empire? That's
There's
the
a,
question.
there's only a handful.
What's
There's only a
Yeah,
handful.
exactly.
It's a
Like
character that you really enjoy.
who am
Not
I?
Vader.
Okay. Who am I missing?
Maybe a
Who am I
certain upcoming Grand Admiral with a blue face and red
Oh,
eyes.
Thrawn would yeah, I mean, as you know, reading the books, there
Hmm.
is actually he has a strong moral code and is
Yes.
far more, like, for lack of a better word, humanist than people would than the cartoon version of him and the live action version of him would lead you to
Yes.
believe, but you're absolutely right. Thrawn would not be down with that.
Yeah, and the Emperor would know. The Emperor knows how smart Thrawn is, right? And that,
Mhm.
well, who is Thrawn, the heir to the Empire, and
Mhm.
Palpatine does not want an heir to the Empire. He is the Empire, and he wants to live forever with it. So I think that I agree with that YouTuber. I certainly didn't realize that when I was watching it. So credit to, I think it
No,
was
but
Screen
that's
Crush, who the Screen Crush guy who brought up that theory. But I was thinking about it again. I was like, that is, if that's true, if that's what Dave Filoni and the writers were kind of like laying in there, it's like it's such a brilliant way to do it too. Just to be like, yeah, of course, because obviously Vader doesn't have any problems with clones. He was friends with the 501st, and was murdering Jedi younglings with them.
yeah.
He's
Right.
not anti-clone and stuff like that. But
It would have to be
Thrawn,
someone outside of the entire sort of
yeah,
yeah, I think that's absolutely right because he
the only
was
people,
never a part of that system.
yeah,
Everybody else is implicated on one
yeah.
side or the other.
Yeah. So I don't know if maybe we get a Thrawn cameo. Maybe at some point in this season we see Thrawn realize what the Emperor was doing, or become knowledgeable. I don't know if they'll end up having to do that, because I don't know. Is this because Thrawn is still moving around? Rebels takes place a few years before A New Hope, so at this point Thrawn is sort of like in the Imperial Navy or whatever, and he's sort of moving his way around. I don't know. He's not a Grand Admiral yet at this point, I don't believe, but he is there, and he is a big sort of person. Him and Tarkin are kind of like the top
Mhm.
dogs. Him and Tarkin.
And Tarkin don't he would not care. Like, whatever will
I don't think, yeah,
offer more power, he would not care.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
he's so power hungry,
And
whereas
Tarkin's more like,
Thrawn has a whole other agenda.
yeah, and the thing about Tarkin is Tarkin is loyal to the Emperor, right? Tarkin does what the Emperor wants him to do. Like I love that one. Love is a strong word here. I won't say love, but there's that great scene where God, I can't remember the name of the planet. They reference it in Andor, where the Tarkin, there's all those protesters on that planet,
Uh-huh.
and he's got his
Right.
star destroyer, and the Emperor's like, just land on him. Tarkin's like, all right, and he lands a star destroyer and murders like thousands of innocent civilians. He's like, we're
Yeah.
the Empire, move, or I'm going to land my starship on you at the behest of my Emperor. So I don't think Tarkin would have a problem with it, but Thrawn
No.
certainly would. And I think the
Yeah, no,
Emperor
I think you're
knows
absolutely right.
that Thrawn would have a problem with it, and he knows
He
that Thrawn's a threat. He knows Thrawn's a threat.
Filoni with the 3D chess, man. He's,
I
like,
know.
always moving pieces around, seeding stuff in. It's really actually masterful and very impressive. Because
Yes.
yeah, that's so subtle, but it's there. It's there, and then when we go back and rewatch this in a few years after we've seen how Thrawn ultimately ties into the story, we'll be like, "Oh, there it was. There it was."
Yeah. What if like this is wild speculation here. This is just my brain going off the top of my head. But what if like season 4 of Mandalorian and going into that when Thrawn comes back, you know how you're just like, well, I don't. Maybe the threat he's there to fight a bigger threat. What if Thrawn comes back to fight the threat of the Emperor? Because Thrawn knows that the Emperor is trying to do all this and sort of, I don't know. It's
Maybe he's making his power play because, like, the only thing he ultimately really cares about is the ascendancy, right?
yeah,
So, if there's a chance for him to have if he believes he has the tactical opportunity to take that power, he is loyal to the Empire to the point that it, like, gets him to where he wants to go.
right. Yeah.
I am curious how far you are in the books. Have you gotten to the second book yet?
Not
Or
yet. I'm about 3/4 of the way through the first. I'm slow. I'm slow. I have
but
so much stuff.
that's where the revelations are.
I'm slow. I have too many things going on in my life.
That's fair.
The other thing I'll mention about Palpatine in this episode that I think was really cool is when they walk into like the chamber that's got all the Sith runes glowing in red in it, and they walk up and Hemlock's telling him about all these various things, but they open up one of those chambers, but they never show what's inside of it. And Hemlock is like talking to him, and they show that shot straight onto the Emperor, and the Emperor's like just staring straight at the audience essentially, but he looks like he has like this amazed look on his face. But they don't show what's in the tank. So what do you think's in the tank? Do you think it's like literally a clone body of the Emperor? Do you think it's a weird Snoke sort of thing? Do you think, I mean, is Filoni going to try to explain Snoke here? Like where do you think what's in all those tanks in your opinion?
I mean, I think my guess would be that it is a perfect clone of him before he got like force lightning into monster version to
Before the
Brundle
Jedi left him
Palpatine.
scarred.
So I do think probably seeing that would, because if you're thinking about his reaction, like I don't think seeing Snoke's lumpy bumpy face would be like, oh, I think
Yeah.
someone like him who is so singularly focused on his own immortality and to see himself like a young healthy version of his body and think like I'm going to be in that. I think that would be the thing he would have that kind of reaction to.
Yeah.
Or unless they like are gonna put him in like the body of Plagueis or something, I guess that could be another option.
Maybe he'll always put him in the body of Anakin. He just clones Anakin. Is like, you know what? I'm going to be in this young, hot, studly body the rest of my time.
You talk about high M. Like Anakin had high M.
True. That's the other interesting is like when he's leaving and he's walking back to the shuttle, or maybe it's while he's in there, and he's like, any resources you need, you get it, Hemlock. Like this is the most important thing to maintaining the Empire. This is it. It's not the Death Star. It's not any of this other stuff that's going on. That's going to be happening. It's this. And I'm trying to think like the Death Star started to be built at the end of Revenge of the Sith because we see it being built there when Anakin turns into Darth Vader. This would have been a few years after that. So at some point, the Emperor was like, Death Star is not the most important thing here. The actual thing is this. Right. I love seeing his Royal Guard there as well. That was cool. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes. I said we did see that tension because if you remember last season, we got a look at Krennic. He showed up at the round table.
Yeah,
and there was like that tension between Krennic and Hemlock about who was like daddy's favorite.
That's true. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. But we know what the Emperor now thinks is most important: living forever.
Well, yeah.
Darth Plagueis the Wise. Have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? So, yeah.
You know what? That actually lends more credence to this idea of like the entire sort of brain trust of Project Necromancer getting wiped out, because there is a point in which the priority does shift. And I don't think that anything would shift him back towards being like, all right, well, I have to be the most destructive force in the world, other than no longer having that at his fingertips.
And think about it, he wiped out Kamino. They're all dead. Nala Se is the only one left, so Nala Se's got the institutional knowledge. You wipe her out, there's nothing there. And if Hemlock gets rooked, then you got nothing there. And so the Emperor's kind of left with, now I got to get my Sith cultists on Exegol to try to like create a morphed, mutated body for me to live in. I think that it would be, they gotta all get wiped out. That makes the most sense. But
Yeah.
Dave Filoni might have different ideas, and we'll see as it plays out. But it would certainly make the most sense.
So we don't know how yet, but we did watch the trailer. So we know that at least one character that died is back, and she was likely brought back through witch magic.
Yes.
Yeah, is that
That's
and now
true.
we have witches back in, like, because of Ahsoka, the live action series. We have those witches back.
But they
in
wouldn't
the
be at this
known
time
universe.
period. They wouldn't be in this time period, though.
But I'm wondering, okay, but this, so where does, okay, this
Because
is
they're
the
all
timeline math
they're
we
all
can't
wiped
do.
they're all wiped out in Clone Wars.
But what I'm saying is, leading in, is it like part of what's happening later with the return of Palpatine, or another way that they're trying to bring Palpatine, and that would make Thrawn be like, no.
I don't know. I don't think you could bring. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with that character. We won't spoil the character who appears. If someone hasn't watched it, don't watch the trailer if you don't want to see it. Because I would have loved for that to not be in the trailer, and then I'd just be stunned when it happens. But yeah, I guess it's going to depend on how they bring that character back. Like, what is the explanation for that character sort of being the way that they are? But I can't imagine they bring like the Witches of Dathomir into this at this point in the timeline, unless they're retconning.
No, not
something.
in this point. But are they seeding how that kind of?
Just seeding it.
Yeah,
maybe.
Like, is that why I mean, I'm delighted this person is back, because it makes me hope we're going to get a live action version. We're going to get an Ahsoka, this person team. Like, there are a lot of implications for me as a fan, but because I feel like Filoni does nothing without a long-term plan in mind, I wonder what that might be.
Yeah, quite possibly. I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. I'm excited to go on the journey and try to figure it out.
You've got my like conspiratorial brain turning, so I'm just gonna say crazy shit that will never come to pass at this point.
That's one of the fun things about talking about Star Wars, is there's so many different directions it could go, and there's multiple options that are good. It's not like they can only go this direction, and if they don't go this direction, the whole House of Cards falls apart. It's like there's all kinds of weird things that could spin off into different directions that we don't know about, but it's fun to kind of speculate and wonder what those might be, while sort of maintaining like I'm okay with the direction. I trust the direction I'm going, even if I wouldn't 100% agree with maybe that choice that they're doing. I trust the creatives in this case implicitly. So I'm like, oh, just take me along for the ride. Just take me along for the ride. So then Emperor Palpatine leaves, right? He leaves.
Bounces.
He's out. While all this crazy shit's happening. What's happening with my boy Crosshair and Omega while the Emperor's on his way out?
Well, we do basically, they're in full force trying to hunt down and kill Omega. He's, Hemlock's like, nope, she went too far this time, execute. Which is when Emery steps in and is like, no. It's interesting she didn't do this before. When he like sends her away, she had that information and she kept it. But then in this moment, when she realizes that Omega is going to die, she reveals the information that she is actually the one person that has whatever characteristic it is that allows them to get that M count up. She has it, which makes her.
They want the midichlorians. They want the midichlorians to not degrade, because Hemlock mentions like, hey, we did a success, but all the midichlorians degraded. So there's just instead of 1,000 midichlorians, it started at 1,000, but it degraded to like 10. And that's not good enough, and so, and they do that great sort of thing. It's almost like the ticking clock, like the bomb's about to go off and all those great things where it's like, it creates tension. It's like, click, and it's going up. It's like, are they going to get out before? Because like they get there, to
Yes.
the ship that is crashed out there, and they don't even know where they're going. And it has to be Crosshair's like, oh yeah, we're going to follow the
Yeah.
flight plan of Emperor Palpatine's ship, and that'll tell you where everything would have went. Because I love when he gets out there. He's like, where is it? She's like, I don't know, and he's like, great. Like, what are we going to do? And so just his lines towards Omega and all these episodes
Yeah.
are just fantastic. He's just so like,
Yeah.
God, kid, like what is going on here? But
Yeah.
I like when they get to the ship and there's like, she's
Mhm.
like, I can't start it. There's nothing I can do here, and you get that moment of like they're gonna get caught, like because they literally release the other wolves, right, to go hunt them down
Yeah.
and stuff. And it's
Yeah.
Crosshair. I love Crosshair's like, do you remember Plan 72? And when he said that, I'm like, now he's bonded with her because
Yep,
he's
that's it.
treating her like one of his brothers and as a sister in this case. Like, do you remember
Yeah.
Plan 72? And she's like, yeah, Tech made me memorize all of
That
them before he
moment.
died.
Of course he did.
It
Like, it
does,
is just this shorthand that happens when you have a connection like
yeah.
that
And
just sort of happens in that moment.
I'm trying to remember. Does Crosshair actually know Tech is dead at this point?
I
Like, I
don't
can't.
know.
I couldn't remember if he found out in the last, the season
I don't know.
finale, or if Omega. Maybe it's implied Omega told him at some point. I don't know. But I love that. And then they steal the ship and basically get out, and it's just so good. It's like them working together is just perfect. It is
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. Love it.
Yep. Yep, and they add a new member of the Bad Batch because
Mhm.
Batcher makes it on the ship.
Yep.
I mean, they gotta give us something. This shit has been so bleak. Like, they had to give us something,
Yeah.
so they gave us a super cute animal, and I am
Well,
not
they
mad at it.
established that Omega's not going to leave anybody behind. So
Right.
she's going to make sure everybody gets off. And I could have, I was going to be like, there's no way they're actually going to get off this planet and just escape, right? But they
Yeah.
do, and it's incredible. I was just like, oh, it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. They can't shoot him because, like, the thing is, I mean, it's smoking out one engine. It's
Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, there's no way they're going to get out of this. And I was like, well, maybe Hunter and Wrecker show up to save the day. Nope, they
Mm-mm.
get out.
No.
They get out. It's
No.
so good.
And it feels earned again because they waited till the 4th episode. That's ballsy. When you think about one of the things that ruins shows at the end is the rush, the expediency, the
Yep.
need to wrap everything up in a set number. Like, there's no uh, pacing. There's no, like, I don't know. I can't think of the right word, but it takes guts to just keep a steady pace. And
Yep.
what ends up happening, and this is true in Andor as well, is that you're not rushing things, not just like hitting a bunch of beats. It makes you lets you live in the time and experience the stakes. It makes it, even
Yeah.
though yes, they do escape, it doesn't feel inevitable. And that
Yeah.
makes it feel really satisfying when she punches it and they go to, whatever. Like that that hits, like you feel it.
Yeah.
And it feels earned.
I was sitting there watching this, and when they escaped, I'm like, yes! I've hit an audible, like, yes! This is, I mean, it
Right.
was so good. It was like, because you're absolutely right. These kind of stories, typically we understand how they're going to play out in most cases. Like, okay, this is the same sort of tropes over and over and over again. But in this
Mhm.
case, I genuinely wasn't sure what was going to happen here because I'm like, can they actually get out of this? Is this even possible? And if they do get out of it, what? Like, someone's got to save them, right? It's like, but no, they do it with their own sort of guts and guile and are able to get out of there. And I love, like, because Hemlock's just trying to blow them out of the sky. He's like, it's over,
Yeah.
kill her, just straight up murder her. And we didn't even mention, like, well, I don't know if it was the first episode or this episode, where Hemlock learns about the troopers who crash outside. It must have been the first
Mhm.
episode. Crash outside, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Let them die. We're not going out there. Let them die out there. Those people." And you're
Yeah.
just kind of like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. They don't hold back with the evil characters in this show. Even though it's a kids
No.
show, they don't hold back with the evil that these people perpetrate. Whether it's Emperor Palpatine, who everybody knows is evil, but even these sort of like calm, smooth, collected. Let them die. We're
Yes,
not going to
but
do it.
Palpatine is cartoonishly evil. He's mustache twirling in the best way.
Yeah.
There is there is something very, very different about just the lack of like just the stone cold lack of humanity in Hemlock.
Yeah.
You know, like when Palpatine does evil, he's like, it's so deliciously camp evil. When Hemlock does it, it's just cold blooded.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just
I
cold blooded.
agree. This is, I would say this is like a perfect episode for me. I didn't find anything that I didn't like about this. I loved every frame of this
Yeah,
episode. I love
yeah.
Palpatine. I love Crosshair and Omega escaping. I loved all of it.
All of it. All of it. So, all right. Speaking of excellent episodes, shall we talk about episode 4?
Let's go on to 4.
Which
Let's finish it
continues to
out.
be amazing. All right. So, this one, episode 4, a different approach. So, like you said, ship is not in great shape. Not in great shape. They managed to escape, but they have to crash land, and they crash land on this planet called Lao. Fortunately, it's not a deserted planet, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it. And they make their way to a nearby spaceport where they have to figure out how to get off the ship because they're going to be able to track this ship. So they need to get rid of
Yeah.
it and get the hell out of here. And this is where we get sort of this division of the ways of approach. Like Crosshair, he is a hammer and he sees nails. He wants to immediately just like brute force his way through this, take people out, kill, cold blooded.
It's a moment like I can take at least half of these people before, they get. She's like, well, let's not do that.
Yeah.
Only half Crosshair? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, he is a little shaky. There was a time that he would have just like bank shotted one bullet and would have killed everybody.
That time is coming again. It's going to be his hero moment when he dies.
You're right.
That's coming.
So she instead opts for just some good old fashioned bribery. And like it's a corrupt planet. So they're down, but it's going to cost them a whole bunch of credits. I think 30,000
30,000 credits. Yeah.
And again, we have Crosshair was like, I know ways to get money, but we'll just actually, I know what we'll do. Again, we'll just kill our way onto a ship. And she's like, no, again, let's take a different approach. And she uses her guile and her gambling skills. And she manages to first kind of get it. I think she pretty much had enough money from the first guy. But then, of course, because they ruin everything, an Imperial officer comes in and sits down, and but she beats him as well.
Yeah, well, what's cool about this whole sequence is there's more great banter between Crosshair and Omega during this, but Omega's the one that gets in their disguises because she's like, we can't walk around like this, buddy, and so she steals clothes or something, and they put it in Crosshair's like in a mask and like a baseball cap, and it's so funny because it's like he looks ridiculous and he knows he looks ridiculous, but he can't do it because she's correct throughout this whole thing. I saw one YouTuber describing this as like she's very young Boba Fett in this. Who Boba Fett is her brother technically. Yeah. Because Boba Fett,
the genetics are there.
Young Boba Fett was kind of doing the scoundrelly type of stuff and the gambling and sort of like getting one up on other people, and it seems like she's very Boba Fettish. Do you think she'll ever meet Boba Fett in this show?
Has she met him? I guess maybe not.
She doesn't even know that that's technically her brother.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right.
There's no idea.
I was just thinking about I would love to see Omega and like a young Ahsoka in the same place because they're so different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they are Luke and Han to some degree. Like one of them's a little bit of a scoundrel and the other one, I mean, with a heart of gold, and then the other one is, Ahsoka. But I don't know. I guess I hadn't really thought about that. She's kind of this perfect sort of blending of the Luke and the Han character. Maybe that's part of why we love her so much.
And we know that she's probably force sensitive at this point with the midichlorian count, whatnot. And, what happened with Anakin. Anakin was the only human that could do pod racing because he was, he had the reflexes of a Jedi, as Qui-Gon was said. You got to have a Jedi reflexes. And I think like she's so good again. We've seen her win games in past seasons too. She's really good at winning games.
Yeah.
What was the name of the lady that was always sending them on their missions? can't remember the name of the character.
Ooh, it was like Lou or Phil or something like that. Hold
Something.
on, I have it.
Yeah, but remember she was like in the bar and Omega was like taking those dudes in the bar for like all their money and stuff. But she was just naturally gifted. You know, if she's got the Force, she's just good at this stuff, right? You can see things before that other people can't see and whatnot. So yeah, and I love this whole sort of thing where Crosshair is like, we got to do this my way, and she's like, nah, and it's so great that she just keeps shutting Crosshair up, and Crosshair keeps following her like his tail between his legs. He's like, fine, and he goes and he like sits down in the corner. He like doesn't want the wolf around. He doesn't want any of this stuff, and he just and Crosshair sits there and lets her do her thing. He puts up a little bit of a fight, but once she pushes back on him, he's like, okay, you do your thing. And he sits there and he watches her just take all these people for all their credits. But yeah, the Imperial Officer Man, I think is what his name was, whatever, when he comes in there, this guy, you could just tell is like, again, a perfect sort of archetype, stereotype of what evil Imperial sort of governor would be.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there is Star Wars kind of works in this space of archetypes, and you think about Luke, he is your hero's journey archetype, but it has really created an archetype for the Imperial officer. Ooh. You just gotta look. You gotta be like, arrogant, look like you enjoy the smell of your own farts, and have a British accent, and that is the perfect Imperial officer. And this guy
be British is what you're saying, right? Just be British.
I mean, I'm hoping Jody listens to this, so I.
We love you, Jody. We love you.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, where were we? So, okay,
she's taking all
the money that they need. Yeah, she's got the money that she needs. She's got the 30,000 credits, but when she gets outside, she's got to
pay the tax. Don't forget the fine and the tax.
Oh, right. So she pays a toll to the corrupt officer, goes outside, gets shook down for more money because her dog has been taken.
Yeah.
And again, every time Crosshair is like, now? How about now? Is it my turn now?
Well, I love that Crosshair when she's like, okay, the dog's that direction, and Crosshair's like, what are you talking about? Well, the dog's this way. Crosshair like, but the ship is that way. Leave the dog. We got to get the hell off this planet, like, now. And Omega's like, here, hands him all the credits. You leave. I'll find my own way, and fucking just walks away from him. And I love that moment so much because it just sort of shows not only like, the sort of morals that Omega has, and she's going to stick with those morals no matter what happens. Does not matter. She's just like, this is what I believe in. I believe in protecting my dog at this point in time. I'm not going to leave my dog buddy here.
Who saved us. We would not be here without.
Yeah, and they do that great sequence. She just walks off, and he's got all the credits, right? And to show his character growth, any point prior to this, he would have taken that money and just left. He did not give a shit about Omega. He did not like her. He thought she was just, an albatross around them, and that, she got them into problems and trouble. Did not care about her. And in that moment, he looks back at her, and you're like, he's all in. He is all in on this girl, and he's going to go back and he's going to do what he needs to do to save her. And then we get to your great point where he's like, my skills are being wasted here, girl. They're being wasted. I'm going to follow you, but they're being wasted. Love it.
Absolutely. I mean, just to add another layer of how much he's grown from this is she isn't just someone he didn't like or found inconvenient. She also is the wedge between him and his brothers. He became like a Ronin, alone in the world, and then betrayed by the Empire because this girl came in and disrupted everything in his brotherhood. So it really shows like a huge change that he follows her, and it just makes you love him even more. You know what I mean?
It's going to make it even sadder when he dies.
I know, but it's going to make that death feel earned. Yeah. Earned is the word of the day.
I'm probably going to cry when Crosshair dies. I'm probbly going to be bawling.
Send me a selfie of you with all the tears when he goes. Sorry. So, of course, they go and to get the dog, and it was all a trap. This fart smelling jerk of a imperial soldier knew that's why he took the dog, because he knew that she would come and he could fleece her for everything. And I couldn't quite tell if he knew exactly who she was. I was
I think he
unclear.
knew. I don't think he knew like how important she was, but he
Got
knew
it.
that Hemlock was looking for her and
Right.
for Crosshair because he knew it. He's like, oh, Hemlock will be here in no time, So you might as well just drop your weapons and whatnot. And there's
Yeah.
such a great moment where like Crosshair's like looking over her and she's just like throws the money. I'm like, okay, we'll do it your way now. Crosshair's like, yes,
Yes.
starts shooting
And it's
everybody. It's
amazing.
so good, so good.
Yeah. It is the how I felt at the end of the last episode when she finally, like, puts him into speed or whatever. Like,
Hyperspace.
it thank you, hyperspace. It was this buildup. You knew eventually it
Yeah,
was gonna come, but every single time, like, they did such a good job of making you go like, "Now?
yeah,
Now? Now?" So when it
yeah,
happens, the buildup has been there, and then it's so totally satisfying to see him get to use his special set of skills.
yeah,
And it kind of speaks to their dynamic, and it kind of you could almost see Omega as being almost too Pollyanna. Like, she's too pure, too, like, to the point where she puts herself in danger, like, you could see it almost diminishing her intelligence or something where she can't be a realist in any situation. So to see her go like, "Okay, now we can do it," I think actually elevates her as well as a character.
yeah,
'Cause it what it means is you can't, like, dismiss all of the decisions she's made before. When push came to shove, it wasn't the first thing she did, but when we got to the Hail Mary, she was not afraid to, I mean, technically have him pull the trigger, but she did.
yeah, yeah. And I think that like I just these 4 episodes. 'Cause I already liked the Omega character before this.
Yeah.
Internet. I like the Omega character. Don't feel free
Mhm.
to throw hate arrows at me. I don't care. But I just
Mhm.
I just love her even more through these first
Mhm.
4 episodes that were or the 3 that she's in that we're getting because it's just like she has such like a practical maturity to what she's doing. She's not coming
Yeah.
across as annoying. Yes, someone could fire back like, it's just the dog. Crosshair was right. Like they need to get off this, and this whole side thing is putting them all in danger because they're going off and doing this. I'm like, if you're complaining about, because I actually watched some complaints about this particular episode, which I couldn't believe that people were complaining about it. And they're like, it's so slow. It's so boring after the first 3, which were just these fantastic. I'm like, did you watch the first 3? These things were like meticulous. Nothing exciting happened in that first episode. You get a monster Resident Evil monster attack in episode 2, yeah, and you get them escaping in episode 3, but it's all build up. And you need to have those moments between Crosshair and Omega to build these sort of character defining moments where she's not where she walks into this situation not knowing it's a trap. And then when she's confronted with the information that it is a trap, then she's like, okay, then plan B. My plan failed here, Crosshair. Now we're going to go with you. And that she doesn't, I don't like the criticism that I have seen people say with the Omega character. Oh, she's just stupid. She puts everybody in danger and stuff like that. I just think that it's showing the growth of her character, honestly, like
Mhm.
throughout the whole courses. And I loved it. I loved how this whole thing played out.
Me too. Me too. Also, how how is Omega different than Hemlock if the dog is disposable?
Exactly. Like, how can you tell? I mean, I'm not a huge animal person. I especially do not like cats. I know you love cats. I'm deathly allergic to them, and they try to kill me every time I'm around them, so I hate them. But everybody on planet Earth that has any sense of heart or morals can understand that you don't just leave your pet to die or send off to a zoo or get taken by some imperial asshole to go do what like don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, even Crosshair
No.
turned back around, like, okay, let's go
Yeah.
get your dog. So it's perfectly reasonable. It makes sense for the character, and I love that it's like when all the animals escape. It's like Jumanji
Mhm.
happening Star Wars, like they have like a zoo. I don't know where they're taking all
Yeah.
these animals. I don't know what they're doing with them, but they have like a million animals flying all around this place. And I'm just like, again, it's showing how the Imperials destroy nature. They take nature, they
Exploit.
exploit, pillage, whatever they want to do. They just don't care. It's probably going to go to some,
Yeah.
Tarkin's private zoo on his home planet or something like that, where they can throw rocks at him and laugh and do whatever they want.
Put it in a coliseum. Who knows?
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
knows?
So I loved how all this played out. I loved how all of this played out.
I
And
think that the criticisms just prove that people just it's okay to have fun, y'all. Like, bring back fun. Normalize enjoying things.
yeah,
It's okay. This
yeah,
is good.
this is good.
Like,
This
what
is
are you
good.
talking about?
Yeah. But we after they escape, they get away. Hemlock is late. He's like, we gotta find them, whatever. And I wonder if that's where Fennec comes in. I wonder if Hemlock hires Fennec to go
Well,
find them.
yeah, he said call in all the operatives. I mean, that's how we're gonna. And the thing is now they have a
Cad
history,
Bane,
right?
Fennec, Cad Bane. Are we just gonna get all the
Cad Bane.
bounty hunters coming in now? Ooh, nice. Excellent. That's cool. That's cool. So yeah, we saw those in the trailer.
I hope so, because
Yeah.
I love me some bounty hunters. But you know what? Would that mean that we'll see that character and then I'm trying not to spoil things, but there, she had an arc with another character who I think probably is bounty hunting at this point. If he's still alive, if he survived the purge.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll
But we
see.
get to a very important moment at the end of this episode. So what sort of happens at the very end of this episode?
Again, last time I'm going to say it, earned. We get the reunion that we have been waiting an entire off season and 4 episodes for.
Yeah.
And it is Wrecker and Hunter meeting Omega and Crosshair where she asked them to meet. And Crosshair was like, it's been several months. They might not still be alive. Like, he is such a pessimist.
Well, he's concerned. Like, you can tell when he says that, he's like, Omega. Again, he uses her name. He's like, oh, he doesn't say kid. He's like, Omega, like, it's been so long, they might not have made it. And she just turns to him like, she's like, they'll be there.
They'll be
like,
there.
They'll be there. Because how I took that was like Crosshair has genuine love for his brothers, right? He doesn't, because at one point, like in one of the previous seasons, he's like, join me in the Empire, right? We'll have a purpose. Yeah. We'll have a mission. We have nothing right now. We're just wandering around. Join me within the Empire. And they said no. They rejected him. But you don't just stop loving your family members. He was deeply hurt, and I think he was very concerned that they might be dead. He might not get that moment of reconciliation with them because he might have missed his chance. But the determination in Omega's face, like, no, they're there. They're gonna be there. And then when they land,
Omega's gonna heal this. Omega's gonna heal this. She's not gonna let. Yeah,
of course. And like, I love when they land. First of all, the scenery is great with those 2 planets, and like they're on this like moon. But you see like the ship there with Wrecker and it's like you don't know if they're actually there or not, because it's like, are they there? Like, did they actually? And then Wrecker comes out, and of course he's like, Wrecker is whatnot. And you get that he's like, hey, we searched the universe 4 times, and then Hunter pops out. It was actually 5. We went across the guy. We were looking for you everywhere, and that's when he has that great line I was saying, where he's like, we tried to find you, and you ended up finding us. And he's like, how the hell did you get out of this place? And that's when like you see Crosshair come down, and you see Hunter and Wrecker. They're pretty pissed when they see him, as they would be, and you see that like wide shot, right, with Crosshair on one side and the 3 of them on the other, and then the show just ends. The episode ends. I'm like, no! I gotta see what happens. I want to know what happens, and I gotta wait till next Wednesday to see what happens. But I thought it was so perfect how it ended. So perfect.
Yes, there was a really great like story arc completed, but also an emotional arc. Like, there was some catharsis that we got, and then a setup for the next sort of emotional arc, because watching whatever is going to happen with Crosshair and his brothers and Omega is going to be, I think, really powerful.
Yeah.
Because the thing I was thinking about sort of in these 4 episodes in totality, there's all kinds of adventure and really great world building and world fixing, which we've discussed. But there's also thematically, and this has probably been true forever with this series, is just how much the complex nature of family is at the heart of this series.
Yeah.
It asks the question, like, what is family? What actually, and is it always healthy? Like, we get Omega and the Batchers, which is a found family that is probably your most traditional. But then there's also Omega and the dog, Batcher. Like, there's that kind of relationship forming, the sisterhood of her and Batcher, but then also the sisterhood of Omega and Emery. And then this weird maternal dynamic between her and Nala Se. And then there's the Emery and Hemlock dynamic and the abandoned clones. And it kind of plays with both these ideas of the way that family can be healing and found family can be the most powerful and like connection you can have, but also how really toxic it can be. And I think it's this complex and nuanced discussion of what family is that at its core the show is about that really elevates it for me. It's a great adventure full of awesome characters, but there's something at its heart that I find really interesting and
Yeah.
moving. And like, family is great. It's also really complicated and fucked up and painful.
Yeah.
It's like the source of so much pain. So, if this ultimately is a metaphor for that, I think it's doing a really, really good job of exploring lots and lots of ways that family looks and the way that family hurts and the way that family heals.
Yeah, that was really well said. I can't say anything that is any better than what you just said there. I love how you put it. But I agree with you. I wonder, like, I don't know if Dave Filoni has kids or imparts some of his familial past experiences into some, because they always say, like, writers, write what you know, right? So
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
write scripts and stuff like, well, this, I know I can, I have experienced this kind of thing in the past, so I'm going to like weave it into the characters and stuff. So I don't know where he pulls for this kind of creative sort of stuff, but I think it's super, super powerful. And yeah, I think what's ultimately going to happen here is, and if it ends up playing out this way, someone will be like, well, it's obviously it's you can see it coming from a million miles away. Of course, Crosshair is going to die, saving everybody in a blaze of glory with an amazing trick shot or something, and then die.
Hmm.
But that's fine. Like you said, if it's earned, if we've spent these sort of quieter episodes getting to know these individuals and seeing how this all sort of plays out, I can't wait to see what they do. Like, how is Crosshair going to apologize to Wrecker and Hunter? Is he still going to be kind of like standoffish, like classic Crosshair? I don't expect him to just immediately be like, "I'm sorry, bros, let's do it." But at some
Yeah.
point, they're going to bring him back in, right? You don't go through this whole thing for them to just push him back out. So
Yeah.
there's going to be that sort of moment, and yeah, it's going to lead to him dying, and saving his brothers and saving Omega in some way, and it feels earned at this point because we're what,
Hmm.
3 seasons in now, and we've seen
Hmm.
this whole sort of thing, and I'm like, it's I'm gonna be okay with it. When it happens,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be okay with it. And I also point out, I
Yeah.
think it was great that when Omega showed up, they really went out of their way. If you watch, like, she's crying, like she's crying.
Mhm.
She's so happy that she came across Wrecker, and then it's like you don't see that too often in like
Mhm.
children's cartoon type stuff where you actually see like
Right.
the lead character. So Omega, I would call, is kind of like the lead character of the Bad
Yeah.
Batch.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you don't see kids just sitting there like crying. And I wonder, like, if I was 12 years old and I watched this scene, would I like be crying along with her? Would I,
Probably.
I don't know. I don't know how it hits kids on that level, but I think it's important to have creative people like Dave Filoni that are creating this type of content ostensibly for kids. So you could have
Mhm.
those kind of like, you can learn and understand about, like you said, those familial elements where, yes, families fight and then families can come together, or there's death and how do you handle death and deal with it,
Yeah.
and in a
Oh,
way that's
yeah.
kind of like safe for them without having to,
Yeah.
it's like almost like preparing them for eventualities.
Yeah.
I could be overstating it, but I think it's important that we
No.
have that kind of stuff in media
No, I
for
love
kids.
that, and I love the crying thing. I hadn't really thought that deeply into it because I was just, like, so excited to see them come back, but the rarity of that, seeing a hero cry, I think is actually really powerful and something that needs to be seen, you
Yeah,
know? Normalize crying, normalize emotion, it does not make you weak, and I
exactly.
think that's
Crying,
really kind of great.
guys, dudes out there, you can cry. You can cry.
It's cool, man.
It's
It's
absolutely it
it's weird
helps
if you
you.
don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it helps you, get through things. I mean, I've cried with my fiance many times over many different things. It's absolutely okay, and it's cool to, like I said, I know you're big on like normalizing things, various things in
Yeah,
media and stuff, and I think that's a
yeah,
big one. And
yeah.
I have no doubt that I'm sure the rest of Bad Batch they're going to probably be crying when Crosshair finally goes out. But we'll
They won't be
see.
alone.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking forever. I apologize for keeping it this long. I was like, Rachel, you should watch this fourth episode. It really, it really
I'm
closes
glad
the loop.
though.
Yeah,
We needed to,
yeah,
and I think maybe do we approach this season this way? Like, we'll touch back after the next arc completes
yeah.
and, like,
I
talk
think
about
so.
it in the same way?
I think so. Yeah,
I
because
think so too.
we are very busy people in our lives, so it's hard for us to like commit to every single week have something out. Now, if Acolyte pops out, that might be something we want to like touch base on and get some content out there. But
Oh, yes.
but yeah, we'll touch base in maybe another 4 episodes of the Bad Batch or whenever the next arc sort of ends, and we will find out
Mhm.
what's going on there. Don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button if you're
Do
a
it.
Star Wars fan that doesn't want to hear people bitching and moaning about every little problem that's out there, and doesn't want to hear people complaining about too many women in Star Wars. Yeah, follow us. We're absolutely cool to talk about why we love this thing. And if you are a hater, I don't care. Leave your comments. Doesn't bother me at all. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's just entertainment. It's all it is. It's entertainment. And I'm here to enjoy things in life. I'm getting to that age where I'm like, I don't really care to dwell on, fighting and vitriol anymore. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm in my 40s. Half my life is gone. Do I want to spend the last half of my life? I mean, it's true, right? And a
No,
third,
it is. You're not wrong.
and a third of the rest of it's going to be spent asleep. So I only have like maybe 30 years tops left, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spend my time bitching and moaning about that stuff. So yeah,
No.
check us out. We'll be back. Hit that notification bell. Then you'll see when we're back. But with that, goodbye, everybody. Have a great night.
Also, Star Wars is woke for the algorithm.